Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and I literally almost forgot my name. That's what that pause was.
I
Um,
wondered what was happening. It's fine.
how are you?
I'm fine. Um, I didn't really know what I was going to talk about, and then my day developed, and now I'm just going to tell you about my Labor Day because today's Labor Day. For those of you who don't know how to record the podcast, it's Monday. Um, I have this like mostly hate relationship with AI. But today I got on Spotify because I was like, I need something to listen to while I'm in the shower. And sometimes your audiobooks like aren't loud enough, like I'd like them to be.
Did
So I was
you
like,
use did
huh?
you use DJ Xavier?
So I used DJ Xavier, and I think we're in a relationship now. So
I love this.
I love him so much. And I just want to note that like Spotify has not been my top music platform forever. I used Apple, I used Beats by Dre before. Like I was always on the Apple side. So all of my like high school, college, post college, like law school music, all of that has all been through Apple. I didn't start using Spotify till like 3 or 4 years ago, probably.
hmm
Um, and
I'm
the
I'm the same
first,
way, but with I used Pandora up until
mm,
like
I used Pandora a lot too, yeah. But the first like three songs that played were 303, Sarah Bareilles, and Girls Like Boys, which are my favorites of all time. So I was like, I don't know how you know me because I started using Spotify when I started working at the office, and so I've used it mostly to listen to like our songwriters' songs or like people I'm looking at for like A&R and like stuff like that. So it isn't even a lot of my own music.
Yeah.
Um,
See, mine is the same way where I listen to Spotify mostly if I'm in the car with Dan. Because when I'm driving with myself or I'm in the shower or whatever and I'm at home, I listen to podcasts. And
mhm.
I don't listen to my podcasts on Spotify. So I don't usually listen to music. So all of my like on repeat songs are like whatever soundtracks are acceptable for me and Dan to both listen to.
Right.
But then DJ X will be like, here's three songs from the soundtrack you've been listening to the most. And then it's like, here, time to switch it up. And it'll play 1995 country. And I'm like, how did you
Yes.
know that that's what I needed right now?
Yes, it switched from Andy Grammer to Sam Hunt, and I was like, okay, I am in
Yeah.
this. So,
Yeah.
my shower was a little longer this morning because I was embracing
Yeah.
my DJX, my new boyfriend. Um, so, and I'm just like all about music today. Later today, I'm going to watch a film. I don't. Are you familiar with the Elephant Six Company?
No.
They I keep saying that this is not the proper way to say it, but I keep saying they spawned Neutral Milk Hotel and others. I had only heard of Neutral Milk Hotel. Well, it turns out they started in Ruston, like where I went to college, and
Okay.
they moved to Atlanta right outside of Sarah's hometown, Sarah that I work with. And so they're doing the Elephant Six documentary and they're having it at the IFC theaters. I've never been to IFC, so we're going to see the documentary later, so maybe I'll know more than their name next time I see you.
Great.
But apparently, it like super started from Ruston. That's like a big thing, and I had no idea. I had no idea.
All right.
So obviously, it wasn't that big of a thing to us, but like, sure, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah. So how are you?
Well, I had a big week. It was a very, very emotional week. I think I cried every single day last week. Um, one of the only other teacher that was like I was really close to left at the school, got a new job. We were like super intensely like we're a Catholic school in a city that has a lot of Catholic schools. So Catholic education is slowly dying anyway, and with how many Catholic schools there are, we're all fighting for the numbers. So like getting staff has been really, really difficult. Um, then on Tuesday, Doug sent me a message that his school needed a teacher, an English teacher, and it would be almost double what I make. And I had a breakdown and I cried and said I was definitely not going to take the job. And then the next day I talked to my principal and was like, shit, I think I need to take to the job. And I called Doug and they had already filled it internally. So like, I was really grateful that that decision was no longer on my chest.
Right.
And I'm glad I don't think the new job would have been what I wanted it to be. I just was like having a hard time with turning down the money. But like, so like, I literally just like cried every single day. But then I had my first class going back to grad school, and I'm really, really happy about it. I'm very stressed out just because I'm taking on too many things at once, because I always do. But I'm excited. I think it's nice. Like, all day yesterday and today I was reading my homework chapters, and like, I literally left the room while Doug and Dan were watching Shazam, or watching the new Flash movie, because I was more interested in my textbook.
Oh, that's so nice.
So I'm like, that's nice. But because I had an existential crisis for the entirety of last week, I was seeing Monica on Friday to do my hair. And I, on the phone with Dan Thursday night, I said, I think I'm going to chop all my hair off. And he said, oh God, please don't do that. And I said, sorry. And then on Friday, I chopped all my hair off.
It looks so good.
If you are watching on YouTube, you will see that my hair is about half a foot or so shorter than it was before. And then I also like started sleeping with like a silk head wrap thing so that it doesn't like damage my hair. And like the first night after it dried, it was so curly the next morning with no heat and no products whatsoever. So like if I actually start taking care of my hair, I might actually have curly hair again.
Ooh, Rachel's ready for me to try and do the no heat curly hair method, whatever that is, with my super straight hair.
You know, it's basically, it's crazy, actually. I've seen people do it and it works if your hair can take it, but everybody's hair is different.
Yeah.
Like my hair immediately, without all of that length, started curling, but now it's 3 days into it and it's flat because I don't have like super, super curly hair. I just have enough of a curl. But I also, like, if I used a diffuser and I used curl protectant stuff, like I probably could have actual curly hair. I just don't fucking have time for that.
Sure.
But yeah, I like my hair, I can't straighten it. If I straighten it, it'll look good for like an hour.
See, that's me with curling it. If I curl it, I have to first of all use an entire can of hairspray to keep it curled. And then like usually within an hour, although it's gotten better over the years at like taking it a bit better, but it's still not great. Still not great.
But yeah, so I'm feeling mostly better from my existential crisis. We'll see. School starts in 2 days, so
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I am glad we both had existential crisis this year and cut our hair off, though. So
yeah,
that's fun for us.
I mean, the other thing is the amount of hair that I cut off, like where I cut it off. Monica and I were like feeling the difference in the texture, and basically everything that had been bleached prior, so like when I was blonde and when I had the blue hair, all of my hair that had previously been bleached is now gone. Nothing left on my head has ever had bleach in it. And the difference that makes in the texture and feeling of my hair is insane.
Yep.
It almost makes me want to bleach my whole head. Just kidding.
That took a real sharp turn.
No, I mean, Monica goes, I can't wait till you don't work at a private school anymore so we can do crazy things to your hair. And I don't think she realizes that that's probably not going to happen because I am now old and also Dan.
No, you could do it.
I could do some things. I can't do what I did before. Like that blue blonde Elsa thing is never going to happen again.
I don't know. Who knows? I'm on that spectrum now. That is where I am going. I would like to do those things to my hair now. So
it's a good time.
Yeah.
The recovery when you decide you no longer want to do those things to your hair is a process. But like,
I mean, I don't want to do anything with like bleaching this, but like I put pink in my hair. I want to like put colors and fun colors and stuff.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, since we both are coming off of really intense weeks, I think the only thing we can do is share a little spiritual guidance with our listeners to help them recover like
Well,
we
I
are.
have something for you, and I don't think this guy sucks. I did try to look him up because he has a podcast, and I don't know who he is. But so if he sucks, I'm sorry. But this is a great quote. Um, be the person who still tries. After failure, after frustration, after disappointment, after exhaustion, after heartache. Be the person who musters up the courage to believe that a new attempt can manifest a new outcome. Be the person who still tries. Joni Domingo.
I don't know who that person is, so I don't know if he
There's
sucks
the
either.
JCD podcast. It looks like he's just like a motivational speaker, like
Oh,
nothing.
great. Cool. No, I mean,
Like,
here's the thing. At this point, with the way podcasters are, if you Google their name and something doesn't
and they
immediately come up
suck,
about a scandal, like, yeah. Like,
Yeah, that's kind
even
of what I figured.
even podcasters that I like, I'm aware that like the first thing that comes up is not good.
Right, yeah. Like, and that's what I figured. So I like didn't do like a huge deep dive, but I just kind of like
Yeah.
Googled around a bit. I didn't see anything
Yeah.
crazy. So
That's
I think
good.
we're okay. I think we're okay.
Okay. Well, we are also okay because today we are talking about Stargate SG-1 Season 4, Episode 8, the first ones. It was rated 7.6 stars, which
That feels kind of okay. I get that it's coming off of this like hype episode, but like that feels low. I felt like this was
it
a really
does
good
feel
like
low.
explanation episode, and like
It does feel low. I like it. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't rate it like above an 8.5. Like it's not
no,
crazy good, but like maybe like a 7.9, 8.2, somewhere in
I was gonna
that.
say like an 8.2 probably is what I was thinking.
Yeah. But it did come out on August 18th, 2000. The number one book was Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. I had never heard of her. Apparently she is an OBE and she wrote a lot of books, both under an assumed name back before it was super cool for bestsellers to be done by a woman, and then under her own name. She decided in the year 2000 that she was done writing and she retired. So this is the last book she ever published.
Good for her.
Some of her short stories were published posthumously. So she died in 2019 and a book of her short stories were published in 2021, but it was like just a collection of short stories that she had previously done. This was her last novel. And I really couldn't find a lot about her personal life except for that she was just a sweet private old lady. When she died in 2019, she was 94.
Good for her.
Yeah. The number one song was Incomplete by Cisco.
I don't remember the lyrics to that one, but when you say Cisco, I'm there. I'm with you.
So the other day, Christopher Judge tweeted, and it was the fact that it was the 21st birthday of Rihanna's song Diamonds, and he just goes, "How did I get so motherfucking old?" And I was like, literally us every time we have to talk about a song on a podcast.
That's all.
Every single time.
Yeah.
But so it's glad to know that Teal'c also feels old as shit.
Great. We are in it together.
And speaking of feeling old as shit, the number one movie.
Oh no.
The number one movie on this day, premiered on this day, was the original Kings of Comedy, starring D.L. Hughley, Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and Bernie Mac.
That feels like it was so long ago.
I still distinctly remember the day that Bernie Mac died and feeling like I could not have imagined a more tragic death. Like I was mind blown.
Remind me
So
when he died in our happy podcast.
he had a heart attack. He died of natural causes, just but way too young.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
It was, but I
remember when he died. I just remember how he died.
I loved the Bernie Mac show. I loved the original Kings of Comedy. I love Steve Harvey and Cedric the Entertainer. Like that is my I loved that genre, that early 2000s, late 90s. Like,
have you watched Neighbors? Isn't Cedric the Entertainer on that?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
It's really funny. You should watch it.
Is that the one where Zac Efron is the neighbor? Is that the second one?
No, Schmidt. What's his name? The guy.
Oh yeah. The new one, the new TV show where Schmidt is like.
Oh, the TV show, not the movie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. The Neighbors, the TV show, is like Seth Rogen and Zac Efron, I think,
No,
or
no, that's
something
the
like
movie.
that.
That's the movie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the movie. The TV
Yeah.
show is Cedric the Entertainer and Schmidt. Yes.
Yes.
I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my list.
It's
'Cause
really
it looks
funny.
it looks hysterical. But
It
so
is.
like
I love it.
I just loved that genre, like that period of comedy, like the barbershop movies. Like
Yeah.
that was
Oh, I did like the barbershop.
such a good time because it wasn't clean comedy, but it wasn't crass either. Like it was just a perfect amount of like innuendo and subtlety and like funny without being like vulgar for the sake of being vulgar, but also without shying away from inappropriate topics. It was just such a good really brand of comedy.
In this movie, but I am familiar with all of these people and all of their comedy. So
I don't know if I couldn't find anything or if I just forgot to look because I have no notes about what happened on that day in history. And I did this 4 days ago. So
August 18th of what year? 2000?
2000.
Great.
But
so
it was a summer Friday in 2000. And as we have seen so far in this season of Stargate, fucking nothing happened.
I was getting ready to start kindergarten. Was I starting kindergarten this year or did I start in 99? 97? When did I start kindergarten? How old am I?
I was about to go into third grade, so you were not starting kindergarten.
So I was going into second grade, right?
Yeah.
So this was probably my first day of school because we started school in August.
Oh, that's right. You guys started school early.
So this was a Monday or a Friday or something. It was
a Friday. It was a Friday.
So this is my first day of school now. And I'm in second grade. And it was super dope. I'm sure I was like doing a skip it.
Probably.
And, just living my best life watching my cartoons. And
Newt Gingrich got married this day.
Oh, thrilling. Yeah.
Yeah. And probably. And a federal jury found the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency guilty of discrimination against Dr. Marsha Coleman Adebayo under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, later inspiring passage of the No Fear Act. So, like, it was a shit day, except for you starting second grade.
Except for me starting second grade and watching my cartoons and then playing with my Skip It. I had a great day. I think I was doing dance that year.
Yeah, I don't know. So
dance. So
cool. So I mean, and of course this episode premiered. So like
sure, this episode premiered. So
this episode, also speaking of exciting though, this episode was directed by Peter DeLuise, but it's also the first episode of the series written by Peter DeLuise.
And he's a creative consultant.
Well, yeah, he's a creative consultant all the time though. But this is the first one that he wrote entirely himself. And it was edited by Brad Rhymes. The guest star that I want to talk about is Vincent Hammond, who actually played the Unas at the end of the episode.
You're not going to talk about Rothman?
We've already talked about Rothman.
Oh, okay.
So we've already talked about Rothman, and the actor who played Shaka, the main Unas, is actually an actor who we have also already talked about because he was in the episode Rules of Engagement with where you could see his face, and then this time he was under prosthetics. So my choices for people to talk about were like a bunch of the bit part soldiers who were in the episodes, Major, the Asian guy. I did a lot of research about him just because of a different show he was on that my dad was talking about, and Captain Griff. But they were all ranked, like listed really low on IMDb. The highest person other than Dion Johnstone and Rothman, who I can't remember the actor's name, was Vincent Hammond, who was the other Unas. So not really a significant role, but
the original Alpha.
Yeah, the original Alpha. It's not really a significant role, but there wasn't really anybody else to talk about for this episode because all of the guest stars are recurring. But he is known for The Relic, Species 11, and Stargate, because he does almost entirely monster work, but he's also a prop maker who makes a lot of the prosthetic monster work. He was part of the art department for the original Iron Man film. And
Nice.
he does a lot with both the tech side and the acting side of monster movies. So, but he is an old school prop guy, so he does not have a ton of information online about his personal life. But, good for him. Yeah, and also like
They're
at
great in
first,
the art department. Iron Man
yeah,
had great designs.
right. But I also like I started writing the notes and like in my brain, he was like the main Unas, and then I rewatched the episode and remembered that he definitely wasn't. And I was like, the other Unas are not in this episode for very long. That was but I think he must have done a lot of the prop work on the monsters
Probably.
also because he was listed so high on IMDb for his like 3 seconds of the
Right.
episode. But he also is part of the art department for the show, so it makes sense that that's why they gave him higher credit. But so we start on a dig site on the Goa'uld home planet. This is the planet where the Goa'uld have originated from. And Daniel and Rothman are looking at a female Goa'uld who may have been its own species without a host.
I also feel like it was a little understated that we were starting out on the original like Goa'uld planet. No one was like super stoked. I was like, this is not like the most exciting thing we've ever done. Is that not true? Like,
yeah. Well, also, Rothman is just like casually naming all of the Goa'uld off after like people he likes. Like he's like, this one's Cleopatra. I'm gonna call her Cleo. It's a fossil, my dude.
yeah. Daniel's like, what? He's like, I found her. I'm naming her.
Okay.
All right. Well.
But the interesting thing that we learn at this dig site is that these original Goa'uld fossils have no naquita in their system. So the naquita and the way that they have evolved and the way that they have that like sense memory of like being around other Goa'uld is not an original characteristic. It's an evolution.
Yeah.
But while they're looking at it, we see that something is spying on Daniel from the woods. Creepy. It's cool.
It's creepy. It made me feel like Spy Kids.
It was like
I got crazy. Yeah.
Sorry. Have you ever played the game Codenames?
Mm-hmm. I love Codenames.
So we were playing Codenames, Dan and I, with his cousin and her husband. And Dan was my partner. And one of the words that I needed him to get was thumb. And I couldn't think of any other word to connect it to. And I said floop.
You said what?
Floop.
Floop?
Yeah, like floops fooblies, the thumb people. And literally no one knew what I was talking about.
I also would not have, I didn't connect all of those things until you connected them, so.
But I was like, Dan, I have previously told you how much I'm obsessed with Spy Kids. I don't understand. He goes, no, I knew you were talking about Spy Kids, but I had no fucking idea that you were talking about thumbs. I was like, the thumb people! And
I did not know that. I'm sure I did know at the time they were called the Floop people, but in memory, I only
Alan Cummings' character is named Floop.
Right. I understand that now, but I would not have remembered that into the back of my head, like until you explained it. But I also loved Spy Kids.
It was really disappointing, but I also knew it was a terrible clue. Like, I knew that as I was saying it, he was not going to get it, and I was just going to look like a fucking asshole, and I couldn't stop laughing. I was, like, crying. I had to hide my face. Like, I couldn't function.
Phalange. Could you say phalange?
I could have said phalange, but that word didn't come into my head. Only fluke
Phalange
did.
up, phalange down. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
You only can say one word.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, phalange would have been a great word. Digit would have been a great word. The only word in my brain was floop.
That's a great word to have in your name, like in your brain. Like, I love it.
But yeah. So then this thing that is looking at them through the woods just runs out of the woods and kidnaps Daniel, and then we get our credits.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, Daniel's gone. This is a very exciting episode for them to not be as excited about it when they're like doing things.
I go, oh, Mom, I think it's the 5th time Daniel's been kidnapped. And she goes, and it won't be the last.
Right. Bless his heart. Oh,
Easy
target.
He is an easy target. He gets kidnapped or like converted or flirted with or seduced or like left behind. Like if something bad is going to happen to somebody that isn't going to destroy the whole episode, it's Daniel. Like,
yeah, I mean, Daniel Jackson's the redheaded stepchild of the group for sure. Like, there's, bless his heart, there's no like,
no, yeah.
Buts. Like,
so we go back to base, and SG-11 is checking in 2 days early. But it's actually not the whole team. It's just Rothman panicking and telling them what happened while taking really intense breaths on his inhaler. And he's like, I think it was an UNAS based on your field report of what an UNAS looks like. And also, they took Daniel.
Also, so here's my next question.
Yeah.
Is this what the UNAS looked like last time we saw them? I felt like did they look the same? Okay.
Yeah.
I have no like memory in my brain.
So this is the 3rd time we've seen the UNAS. The first time was in Thor's hammer in the dungeon, and that UNAS didn't look quite exactly the same because he was also rotting in a dungeon for hundreds of years. And then the second time we saw the UNAS, and the one that this UNAS looks more like is the one
the UNAS episode.
No. The planet with where Sokar has convinced the medieval Christians.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I wouldn't have called it an UNAS episode because I was like, yes, it was, but I was like, no, it's Sokar and the devil. Like,
well, you know, sure, the devil, whatever, but like, yeah, guess that's a bigger deal. But
yeah,
you know, it's fine. It's fine.
But but that's why the planet Simera, what that Rothman mentions, is the planet, the medieval Christian planet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Everything tracks.
Yes. And so then Jack immediately is like, this is not good. I want a search and rescue team because in Jack's mind, all UNAS are Goa'uld hosts. So he's like, not a good thing. And Teal'c reminds them that the planet that Daniel and Rothman were at is the Goa'uld homeworld, which is also the native planet of the UNAS. So it is very possible that this is a primitive UNAS who is not a Goa'uld host, and is going to be less of a danger to Daniel, but they would also still like to recover him because he gets kidnapped a lot.
Yeah, in Planet 888, though, like, it sounds terrifying. Like, everything's originated here. So we have, like, unfamiliar territory, but semi-familiar. Like,
yeah,
what if things have evolved and we've got all these ideations about them, and then all of a sudden we get there and they're completely different, or, like, they don't react the same way that, like, the evolved ones do. Like, it just...
I mean, and that is exactly what happens.
Right, and, like, so I don't understand why no one's scared but me. Like... Everyone's just like, yeah, it's cool. Just like go do some research with the team you don't work with. You're not.
The thing is, I think that they suffer from the same tragic hubris that most military American alien exploring any type of show in that vein suffer from, where they just assume that the word primitive means stupid.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, they don't have technology. They can't be scary.
Be scarier because that means technology hasn't studied them and we don't know anything about them.
Oh, I'm with you. The words primitive and stupid are not synonyms.
No.
In fact, what is the definition, the actual definition of the word primitive?
First being. I'm going to make up a lot of stuff for you today. I've made up your day, make up your definition.
Perfect. No. Relating to, denoting, or preserving the character of an early stage in the evolutionary or historical development of something. Having a style or quality that offers an extremely basic level of comfort, convenience, or efficiency. So, like, relating to early in development does not mean dumb.
No.
Like, like primitive cultures on Earth made the fucking pyramids. You're gonna tell me,
Right.
well, or maybe aliens did. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But
That's true.
but still, I mean, think about it. How many cathedrals and crazy shit that like we talk about how beautiful they are were made before we had like cranes.
Yeah.
So like primitive doesn't mean dumb.
No. And if it wasn't primitive people, it was probably primitive aliens still. Like it was still probably primitive.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, and the Great Wall of China, we know aliens didn't build that because there's too many dead bodies inside the wall.
Yeah. A lot
Um,
more death in the primitive. Okay, primitive is more terrifying because you don't know anything about it, and they killed a lot more people.
and they don't have medical technology either.
Yeah. Oh gosh, no, terrifying. Ugh, this is why people did drugs. This is why people got on the opioids and the cocaines and the whatnot because they were terrified just to be alive.
The way you just pluralized cocaine. Um, but so Hammond agrees to send them on their little search and rescue nonsense. Which we see that Daniel wakes up tied up, and then we flash back. This middle section of the episode is a lot of flashing back and forth. Very infuriating. Because so many of the scenes didn't actually develop anything, but I wanted to like denote that we had flashed back, and it was so annoying.
Yeah.
But so then we go back to the SG teams, and SG-1 and 2 and Rothman are heading out for this search.
Did we just blur teams? Like, did they just like go? Like, Daniel was just with this Rothman team, but he's SG-1.
Yeah.
Does he just go with whoever because he's the
Well,
researcher?
I think Daniel just went with SG-11 because SG-11 found like they all get like this team goes out to this planet, this team goes out, and they're all
Right.
still doing like basically like Americo Vespucci and Christopher Columbus. The like you take a boat and find this one and tell me
Yeah.
what's there, and you take a boat and find that one and tell me what's there. But then they found this one and saw what it was and sent Daniel to join them because of what it was. But SG-1 and 2 are obviously like the highest caliber of the military.
Right.
And so then Rothman is like, but I was there. I should go. It's my team. And Jack's like, fuck you.
Jack was like, I wasn't gonna bring you. I don't know
Yeah.
why you need to go.
But so they go through the gate back to this planet. On the planet, the Unas and Daniel are like walking, and Daniel gets tired and like decides he's gonna rest and just like throws himself on the ground. And he's like, rest, rest. And then he like tries to radio to communicate with whoever can hear the radio signal, and the Unas just like throws it.
Yeah,
It's
he
like
didn't
no,
care.
he did not care for that. And Daniel also like tries to communicate with the Unas, who does not care for that either.
I don't understand. He like goes to all these planets and he's supposed to be our like linguist, and he does it by just saying the same words with them over and over. And I'm like, the more times you say it doesn't mean they're gonna get it faster. Like you have to indicate what it means. And you can't just like be like, does this mean this? No, they don't know. It means whatever they've said in their language. How are you trying to like you can't ask them if it means what it is in your language. I just bless his heart.
Yeah.
I figured out their language as quickly as he did.
Correct.
And like
for those of you who don't know, well, I think everyone knows what I'm going back to school for, but I'm going back to school for teaching English to speakers of other languages. And I was been reading a chapter on language and on like polyphony and like all of the and phonemes and all of the way sounds work and what the basis of language is. And there was this whole paragraph in my chapter this morning about what a linguist is and what they do. And I was like, unless you're fucking Daniel Jackson, because he has ruined the idea of linguists for me. Because this book, where was it? I was reading. Linguists study the underlying system of language, which includes the properties of words and how words are combined to form sentences and make meanings. Linguists also study language use or language as an act of speaking and writing in different situations. They examine different aspects of communication, including the context, the background of the speaker, the interactive nature and purpose of communication, and language variation.
And like when you hear Daniel talk about language he's learned before, it sounds that way. But then when you see it in practice, he just looks like he like walked off the street and was like, "Hi, I'm a linguist."
Right.
And they were like, "Sure, yeah, sounds good."
And probably it's because no one on the writing staff of the show has ever spoken to a linguist.
Sure, probably. Yeah, that is probably very true. Come on, Peter, call someone up that's a linguist and talk to him.
Oh man, it's bad. Because he just he just says words at him.
Mm-hmm.
And if he didn't know what rest meant the first time, and then you did an action and he still didn't know what it meant, saying it 8 more times doesn't help.
Doesn't work, no. Yeah. It's like someone playing charades, like who doesn't know how to play charades. It's
and you do
infuriating.
the same motion over and over and over again, and no one's getting it, and you don't change your motion. Like, no, I don't fucking know what that means.
Right. Ugh. I could be a linguist. I'm so good at charades.
Or like fucking people who like go on vacation to like countries and don't speak any language other than English and just say shit really slow in your face.
Yeah.
Like that.
Or loud.
Changing the volume and the speed of which you say the word doesn't change the word.
No. Does not change the word. At all.
I fucking hate people.
They're the worst.
Then we flash back to Jack. They're still tracking him. Then that's all we get. That's it. Then we flash back to Daniel, who they walk for a little bit farther, and then the Unas decides when he sees the moon that it is in fact time for them to like rest. So Daniel lays down, and he's very glad to no longer be walking at Unas' pace. And then the Unas starts doing this weird rhythmic like breathing. It was adorable. It was also really uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it's also very uncomfortable. But
so Daniel starts taking his notes, and he's like taking his little voice thing, and he's speaking about the Unas, and he's like describing everything just in case he dies.
Right, sure. Well, you know.
Which good for him for trying to get those notes out for the best.
Yeah.
But also the Unas is so fucking pissed that Daniel is talking. Does not care that Daniel's taking notes, doesn't care about the tape recorder, is just like, bro, will you shut up while I'm meditating?
Do you see what's happening right now? Like, could you leave me be? I'm letting you rest like you've asked for 30 times. Let me do my meditation.
Like, could you imagine if you were trying to meditate and somebody was just like describing you?
I would stab them. That would be my reaction. There is no lesser reaction. I would be more angry if someone was bothering me while I was trying to meditate than just like in general bothering me.
Yeah.
Doing anything else in the world.
Right. Yeah, so the Unas is like not having it. Then a UAV flies overhead and scares the Unas, and Daniel manages to calm him down, and it was so sweet. We also kind of learned the Unas's name at this point, because the Unas tells Daniel his name, but at this point Daniel doesn't fucking know that that's the Unas's name. Like Daniel can't figure it out. And to be fair, you never really get it solidified in the episode that is the Unas's name. But it is.
That's good. I assumed so. But
yeah.
Not like 100%, but I'm like 90%. So
yeah, so the Unas's name is Chaka, which I'm just going to throw this trivia piece in now, instead of at the end. This is a trivia piece that is speculation. That's why I'm not putting it at the end with trivia. But so in the original 1973 Land of the Lost TV show, the ape man that they met and that like introduced them to the Land of the Lost in like the first interaction, the first episode that they had was very similar to how Daniel and the Unas start to communicate with each other. His name was Chaka.
That's so nice. I hope that's true.
Me too.
That's a nice nod. I don't know that show, but it's a nice nod nonetheless.
Yeah. You don't know. I just was talking to Dan about that show last night. Do you know the show HR Puff and Stuff?
No, but that one sounds more familiar.
So Sid and Marty Croft were like children's television show creators from the 60s and 70s, and they made like some of the fucking weirdest shows ever. But kids loved it because you know how drugs were in the 70s.
Sure.
And like HR Puff and Stuff is this really weird show about this little boy who has a magical talking flute, and he goes to this island where everyone is a puppet except for him and the witch wants to steal the magic flute. And
Oh, there.
her name is Witchy Poo, and she is probably the ugliest, like scariest looking children's
Aggie
witch
looking
ever.
witch.
Yeah.
This
But
is like opening a portal in my brain. I feel like you've told me about this before. I don't know that I know about it, but I feel like
no,
you've
you
told
know
me about
what? Probably you heard it on the podcast because Monica and I talk about it all the time because our dads loved this show as kids, and so my Uncle David and my dad made us watch it as kids. So like Monica and I,
Right.
we that's that 70s acid trip is when we both took.
I love it.
But I said something about HR Puff and Stuff, and Dan looked at me like I was a crackhead. So I started playing the first episode on YouTube for him last night, and instead of watching the episode, I watched his face while the theme song played, and I have never seen someone more concerned for my mental well-being.
This feels like when Caitlin showed me Over the Garden Hedge. So
I just
only watched the first episode because it was terrifying, and I was like,
literally just talked to Nancy in Montana yesterday because we were talking about how it is our time for our yearly rewatch.
Oh, good, great, can't wait. I'll watch it one day, but it's like I'm watching all these horror films. I'm watching The Exorcist, but I'm like, this is terrifying. I cannot watch Over the Garden Hedge. It's so scary. It's mentally terrifying.
It is because it's about death. It puts you into a cartoon existential crisis that you're like, I didn't know cartoons made me feel this way.
No, it's awful. It's why I haven't watched that like devil show about that little girl that's a devil in the cartoon or whatever. It's probably the same. It's probably just as terrifying.
Probably, yeah. There's something about the cognitive dissonance of cartoons and death.
Well, I watched like Cowardly Dog. That was also, I mean, that was terrifying too. But like,
but that's the thing is that it's
and like Grimm's, whatever.
Billy and Mandy, The Adventures of.
I didn't like the what is it called? The artistic design on that.
Yeah, the animation style in that
animation.
One.
Thank you. I didn't like the animation style on that, but the show itself was like fine, I guess.
Well, but the other thing is that one, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, isn't scary because they're kind of making fun of death.
Yeah,
they're not, because the Grim Reaper is like a weird character in the show. It's not the same. Like Courage, I would put Courage in the same category of terrifying, but like Courage and Over the Garden Wall and like things like Coraline, where they like
Coraline also is terrifying.
It's because they all fall into that same category of convincing you that you're watching a child's program while also questioning everything you know about your existence as a human, and that is a lot.
We're gonna have to do an animated horror. That's gonna be terrifying. Okay, let's do it.
So then we flash to Jack still searching.
Yeah. Great.
That's it.
Done.
Great. Moving on. Then we go back and Danielle asks for water. And Chaka lets go of his rope to let him get water. But first Daniel tries to stick his face in the pool. And Chaka is like, please do not.
Yeah, he's like, do not do this.
No. Which we, of course, know why.
Right.
But do not. So he has him put his hands in, but Daniel's like, how am I supposed to put my hands in?
Yeah.
And so then Chaka lets go of the
Chaka was going to feed him water out of his hands.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be so cute.
So he lets go. It didn't, but he lets go of the rope. And then Daniel, like a little fucking twat, runs away.
But like haphazardly. It's not like a clean run, clean break or anything.
I mean, and to be fair, his hands are still tied together, and as much as you don't think about the equilibrium of your body, yeah. I could not run with my hands tied together in front of me either.
If one part of my body is off, I am not running.
But. Yeah.
I mean, I don't run well already, but
I was
like,
gonna say I also
but
don't
like
run.
throw in a wrench and I'm down for the count.
Um, but then the Unas like runs around and they chase him, and Daniel like gets to the edge of the water and gets in, starts going into the water, and the Unas refuses to follow him into the water, which is already a terrible sign.
Not great. Yeah, not great.
Because it's not like he's allergic to water. We just saw him touch the water.
Yeah.
So then he
He's a
runs.
rock creature, so not many things can get to him. Like,
Right. So Chaka runs around to the other side of the pool and like to cut him off at the pass. And then a gold symbiote starts swimming through the water at Daniel.
eek.
But the Unas just catches it midair and rips it in half and kills it and smears its disgusting blue blood all over
It's
Daniel's
super
face.
blue. Like, have we seen its blood before? Because that was jarring for me.
I don't know that we have seen its blood before.
It looks like it was just paint, like blue paint.
Yeah. It also reminded me of Spy Kids
Mm.
with like that weird food.
It made me think of the original Evil Dead
Mm. Yeah.
because they had like colored Play-Doh-y like creatures.
Yeah. I don't
Not great. Not well.
it was again not great. But it's also like, could you imagine? Like, I was just trying to imagine being in that position where somebody saves me, but then rubs blood on my face and yells in a foreign language at my face.
I would know. I would just give up then. Like, I don't, Daniel's so much stronger than me, even though he's a little bit dumber sometimes. Like, man, he hangs in there a lot longer than I would have.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know because I've never been in a position where I'm genuinely fighting for my life. But
That's true.
I don't I guess my fight or flight like might help in that situation, but also it might not.
I don't think
Um,
I'd be as calm though, regardless of like
yeah.
what I chose to do.
Then we go back to SG-1 and they have found the dig site and they found Loader's dead body, which was the one that Rothman told them was dead. And they find Major Hawkins, who is just like acting fucking hella weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then we flash to Daniel and Chaka, who are finding a cave for the night. And then we flash back to the team who decide to make a camp for the night. So everyone's like going to sleep at nighttime. But in the cave, Daniel is still trying to communicate with Chaka. And Chaka roasts the Goa'uld and tries to feed it to Daniel.
But he was so kind. He was trying to keep him alive for a minute.
And then they like play toss the Goa'uld head back and forth. And they like start to communicate, and like Daniel finally learns a goddamn word in Unas. And they're like starting to be friends. And then back at camp, Jack like wakes Rothman up to ask if Hawkins is acting weird, and Rothman is like super fucking dumb. He's like, I don't know.
Like, he's the worst. I don't. Ugh.
He's like, I literally don't know. Like, he's like, I don't know. I could tell you everything about a fucking fossil, but I don't understand people.
So dumb. I hate this
Which
guy.
I hate him. Which here's the thing. I got not being like good at people. I totally get it.
Sure.
But as an archaeologist, as someone who studies human behavior,
mm-hmm.
even if you don't know how to be friends with a person, you would have the observational skills to know if their behavior was different than normal.
Yes. And you'd be better at knowing it than just like a generic person who, even someone who's good with people, someone who studies people and does not go with people is going to be better at noticing when they're different.
Because your observation, you're not communicating with them. You're not swayed by your own relationship with them. You're just observing them.
Right.
So Rothman's an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be fair, we knew that already.
Sure.
But then Surprise, surprise. Hawkins' eyes flash.
Yeah,
We didn't all see that coming.
Yeah.
Back in the cave, Daniel continues documenting the Unas, and then and their protection. He realizes that the bone necklace that they're wearing is to stop their neck from being exposed so that they can't
super
be.
Smart.
Yeah. So like he realizes that like oh my God. This note that I wrote, I was like, I don't know what words are. And I like could not figure out a way to describe what was happening. And I wrote, he realized that this Unas is on his warrior Rumspringa. And then I told my parents that, and my mom was like, no, it's really not the same as a Rumspringa. And I go, no, I guess you're right. It's more like a bat mitzvah, but with war. And she was like, yeah, like they're getting to the point where they have to prove that they're a man. So my note literally says, he's literally says that he's on his warrior bat mitzvah. I am fully aware that that is culturally insensitive and not appropriate, and that there are lots of tribes that have like ceremonies for warriors. I just don't know the names for any of them because I'm not a linguist. And that was the only thing I could think of.
Oh, that's a good comparison. I feel like a lot of people get that. Like,
yeah, at least
they connect dots A and B.
Yeah, I was like, at least it makes the concept make sense. It is not the correct thing at all. But and that he must think that so Daniel realizes that Chaka must think that Daniel is a Goa'uld and that he is going to kill him. Yay. Then it is the morning and the Stargate teams are breaking camp, and Teal'c senses the Goa'uld in the water. We have a really great shot of him like barely turning around and like killing the Goa'uld without even looking at it. And decides that everyone in the camp may now be compromised. He's like, I don't know who I can trust. You're all Goa'uld.
All of you. Yeah, exactly. All of you are Goa'uld now.
And then they try to fight him. They're like, how do you know you're not? Because he can't be.
Right.
Dummy.
Like, obviously you don't know how this works. Like,
right. But Sam is like confused. She's like, I can't sense them. And Rothan is like, well, that's probably because these Goa'uld don't have the Naquadah in them, and the Naquadah in your system is what senses the Goa'uld, which I file that under the category of things that we just made up to deal with the fact that Sam sometimes has Goa'uld power and sometimes doesn't.
Track, because it's not that Teal'c registered them. He just logically was like, you may all be a Goa'uld now because they're Goa'uld here. Like, there's no way to
right. And he senses them based on the movement in the water and his and he actually has an active Goa'uld in his body.
Right.
So it's slightly different. But you're right. He doesn't know which one of them is Goa'uld because they're different. So no, they did it well. I just also, every time they find a situation where Sam can't use her powers, I decide that they just didn't think about that when they decided she still had them.
I'm sure that's yeah.
So Teal'c, they gives them all orders to drop their weapon, and he ties them all up with zip ties, which I don't know if you know. The normal average human strength definitely cannot pull apart zip ties. That's why people use them in like kidnapping shows. I have tried to take a zip tie off of like a sneaker and not been able to do it.
Yeah.
We've previously discussed quite a few times how much the Goa'uld are definitely stronger than that. So that was a choice. Of course, it was intentional.
Right.
But in the moment, you're like,
this doesn't seem like it's gonna work, right?
Yeah. So then back at the cave, Chaka is sleeping and Daniel like considers killing him. And then doesn't. He just like drops the rock.
Kill people.
I know. He like drops the rock and offers to like help him instead. Then we go back to Teal'c tying everyone up. Then we go back to Daniel, who is removing the thorn from Chaka's hand and asks to go home. Back with the rest of the team, Teal'c leaves and leaves them all there with their zip ties, and Hawkins releases himself, and Teal'c shoots him because zip ties.
Right.
And Teal'c says that he had to wait long enough to be sure Hawkins wasn't alone when he starts to release everyone else. But then Rothman was playing dumb, and he also is a gold, and he steals Teal'c's staff, tries to shoot, but Jack is prepared and shoots him.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Captain Griff gets shot in the crosshairs, but Captain Griff and the rest of his team take the dead and injured and go back to
It
base.
was just his shoulder, to be fair. He's
No, yeah. He was shot in the shoulder, but he was shot with Teal'c's staff weapon in the shoulder, not a bullet. So it's a slightly more aggressive.
Yeah, it's not great, but he'll survive. I didn't question it for a minute.
Oh yeah, no.
Survive.
I only questioned it because from the angle I couldn't tell where he got shot.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I saw him laying on the ground with his arm, I go, okay, no, he's fine.
Right.
But my mom and I were discussing why Rothman didn't pull his hands apart as fast as Hawkins did. And we've determined that it's because the host's level of intelligence doesn't disappear when the Goa'uld takes over. And Rothman is not a brute force kind of guy. He's a figure the plan out kind of guy.
Yeah.
He's also an idiot, but for other reasons. But so then all the injured and dead go home, and we're left with just SG-1 on the trail of Daniel, and they find Chaka's cave and Daniel's blood and all of his notes on the wall about where to go to find him.
This way.
This way. Also, he wrote this way very fast, and so the legibility for how fast he wrote it, not believable.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But then we continue on in the caves, and we find that Chaka and Daniel have met up with what I wrote as Papa Unas.
Papa Unas.
And he tries to attack Daniel, but Chaka stops him. And SG-1 arrives and tries to attack all of the Unas, but Daniel stops them. And
I want you to know that makes me think all of this is translated, so it's first potato.
Oh, Papa Unas, yeah, first potato. Yeah. Got it. So first potato, Chaka keeps trying to communicate with the first potato, but they don't care, and they're gonna stop kill Daniel anyway until Daniel also speaks the Unas language, and then they realize that he was able to actually communicate with them, and then he decides he doesn't give a shit, and he still attacks them. And SG-1 shoots him, obviously, because he's trying to attack Daniel. But then Chaka also gets up and fights back and beats the shit out of Papa Unas and kills him and becomes the new alpha male.
Yeah.
And then he asks Daniel to stay, but Daniel says no.
It was so sweet.
It was so sweet.
They
end in this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship moment, and they have a moment, and they're and SG-1 is what did you just say? And he says, I have no idea. He is an idiot.
Bless his heart, yeah.
In terms of trivia, there really wasn't a lot. There was the fact that Chaka might be a reference to Land of the Lost, and the fact that Dion Johnstone, who played Chaka, was already at Captain Nelson in Rules of Engagement. This is the first appearance of the P-90 submachine gun to replace the MP5s as the primary weapon of SG-1. So our new guns are going to stay our guns for a while. I don't think we've ever talked about the guns because I don't know anything about them. And then this piece of trivia, when Daniel pulls the bullet or the thing from Chaka's hand, he mentions Androcles and the lion, which I don't know if you know the story of Androcles and the lion, but for our listeners who don't, basically Androcles was a runaway Roman slave who was hiding in a cave, and then the cave turned out to be the home of a wounded lion, and he took the thorn out of the lion's paw, and then later he was being attacked, or he was being condemned to death in Rome, and when he was set to be executed, the lion came back and saved him.
Which is what happened here.
Yes.
Also. Yes.
Exactly. So who do you want to punch?
Rothman.
Obviously.
Yeah.
He sucks. I will also punch Papa Unas just because he didn't have to die. If he would have just listened to Chaka, he wouldn't have died. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, Rothman is the shittiest character. I wasn't sad that he died.
No, not at all.
Yeah. What about your MVP?
Chaka. The best. He took care of Daniel even when he was his prisoner. Like, he made sure he had food, even if it wasn't what he wanted. He made sure he had water. He made sure he didn't get like attacked by gold. And then when they became befriended, he protected him in the end. Like, he's just
no, Chaka's the best. I mean, I guess I have to pick Daniel. Because even though he was bad at it, he did communicate with Chaka and like create a relationship with the Unas that may be beneficial in the future.
Him and Chaka are like the new Thor and Jack.
That would be to that. So so Teal'c has Braytak, Jack has Thor, Daniel has Chaka, and Sam had Martooth, but now he's dead.
I was gonna say Martooth, but he died.
I guess she still has her dad.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. Yeah.
All right, well, I'll be on the lookout for Sam's partner.
Sam's new partner. Yeah. The next episode is one I do not remember at all. So
great, can't wait.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's bad, just means I have no memory of it. But yeah. So yeah, we will do you have any other thoughts, theories, questions, concerns?
No, nothing. This was not a bleeding episode. It doesn't give me ideas.
I mean, one question, we do this so often on Stargate where we seem to create a beautiful connection with a character and then we will literally never see them again. No. Do you think we will see Chaka again?
I think maybe because we've seen the Unas before, and it's not like a new idea that we'll never talk about again. Like, so I could see us seeing Chaka again, or at least seeing someone who like branched off and still formed that, like, was still like okay with SG because of the connection with Chaka. Like, I don't know if it'll be Chaka directly, but
fair enough.
I feel like it might be.
Okay. All right. I will not spoil anything one way or the other.
Thanks.
So if you have any questions or concerns, if you want to vote on whether we'll see Chaka again, or if you have any ideas on how Daniel could be a better linguist, please email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can follow us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can follow me everywhere at ENKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And we will see you for a wild, wild episode of Thriller Thursday. Bye.